Good evening, my name is Seren Gittens. Euphoria is a show that was released in 2019 and immediately dominated the film industry. This series narrates the life of a female drug addict at the age of 16, which led to widespread criticism. There were many disputes regarding the accuracy of the show and whether or not it was too vulgar and too inappropriate for a high school audience. This led to further inquiry regarding the accuracy of these portrayals. As I began researching this, I noticed that there was no scholarly information regarding Euphoria or many other films that portray drug addiction. Since the show was so popular among so many age ranges and different demographics, I thought there needed to be scholarly research done to prove the accuracy. Therefore, my three purposes for this were to help viewers and critics distinguish between glamorized and accurate scenes, educate viewers with an accurate knowledge of drug addiction using the 4-stage model, and to serve as an influence for other producers, knowing that it's doable and essential to portray accurate scenes of drug addiction. In reviewing existing literature, like I said previously, there was no scholarly research conducted on Euphoria, so I knew going into it that this would be my gap. However, I read many other film reviews and noted the use of a content analysis and a mise en scene analysis. Different researchers commented on these strategical methods, and one researcher, Rao Ravindra, noted that the effects of a mixed method approach can allow for the best combination of quantitative and qualitative analysis for films. Researcher Haran Silvaplan noted that the inclusion of drug addiction in film allows depth and complexity for the plot for what's known as interpretational ambiguity, meaning that viewers can interpret it however they want. However, when it comes to something as serious as drug addiction, there needs to be a line to recognize what is accurate versus what's not. This led me to my final research question, which was, to what extent does Euphoria accurately portray the stages and effect of drug addiction and withdrawal? There are 4 stages of drug addiction, the first one being experimentation, the second is frequent use, the third is usual use, and the fourth is full dependency. Stages 2 and 3 often have similar symptoms and behaviors, so sometimes the line is hard to draw in between the two. However, stage 1 experimentation is very frequent, whereas stage 4 is on the furthest end of the spectrum, and behaviors are very easily recognizable, and then start to shift into symptoms of withdrawal. Symptoms of withdrawal include paranoia, depression, disorientation, and fatigue. There are, of course, many other symptoms, but these were the main factors that were observed when watching Euphoria. For my methodology, I took inspiration from previous researchers that I mentioned and to use a mixed method approach of a content analysis and a mise en scene analysis. This approach allows for a better understanding of the drug depictions in Euphoria, as many drug-related effects are shown indirectly through the cinematic elements. When I first watched Euphoria, this is something that captivated me, as I felt that I was understanding things through the music, the lighting, or even the makeup. This mixed method approach also allows for the data to be quantified and qualified, which is very essential for analyzing a film. To break down the content analysis, I chose this initially because it's the most common to study the narrative of a film, such as observable behaviors and dialogue. This was used to analyze the development of drug addiction, or the 4 stages that we looked at previously. I could observe the behaviors shown in the series and categorize them based on their chronological arrangement with the 4-stage model. To break down the mise en scene analysis, I wasn't originally going to include this, however, I realized it was necessary to offer some type of quantification of the data I found. I used this to study the cinematography effects that were based on music, makeup, lighting, and framework. These effects were used to portray symptoms of addiction, withdrawal, and on a smaller scale, development of addiction. To collect the data, I made 2 charts, one for the mise en scene and one for the content analysis. Each chart had the episode and a timestamp from where it was observed. These were collected from all 8 episodes of season 1. Initially, I took notes of all the scenes that I observed usage of drug or withdrawal behaviors or development of the addiction in my first run-through of the series. Then I rewatched each of these scenes that I noted, studying them at a deeper extent. The accumulation of medical sources and papers allowed me to accurately deem these scenes as either accurate or inaccurate. I used what medical researchers had previously found to compare what the show Euphoria was portraying. This is the scale used for each of the charts to deem the label either inaccurate with a score of 1, mostly inaccurate score of 2, moderately accurate with a score of 3, mostly accurate with a score of 4, and accurate with a score of 5. Again, these labels were based off previous medical research so that I could compare the scenes presented in Euphoria. The results of this study produced 3 graphs. There was not a graph created after analyzing the development of drug addiction because there were fewer scenes than expected. The insufficiency of these results, with the fewer scenes, does not determine the show to be inaccurate. However, it does limit the extent to which the addiction battle can be truly deemed as accurate. Without portraying the detailed development of drug addiction, with the inclusion of all stages 1 through 4, researchers are limited in understanding all the stressors and contributors to the characters' struggles. This graph was the 3rd graph created, showing the overall distribution of the accurate portrayals through both the mise-en-scene and contextual analyses. This shows the total of 24 scenes studied in season 1. As you can see, 87.5% of the scenes analyzed were deemed some level of accurate, with those possessing a score of 3 or higher. The majority of scenes received a score of 5, an equal amount received a score of 3 and 4, and the fewest amount of scenes received a score of 1 and 2. Most of the scenes receiving the score of 5 were scenes portraying drug withdrawal, both affective and somatic behaviors of the nervous system, which are the most easily portrayed. There are 2 categories of limitations for this research, one being the researcher's expertise within the field, and the other being the unavoidable element of drama in the film. The researchers' expertise was limited because they had no prior experience conducting research. However, they were guided by an expert advisor and previously published sources. Next, there were necessary elements of drama for viewers' entertainment that required a certain level of exaggeration or neglect of realistic effects and behaviors associated with drug abuse. With this, certain seals failed to identify the drug used, so I was required to hypothesize the data based on subsequent behaviors and previous research done to guess what kind of drug the show was showing. Although there were fewer scenes portraying the development of drug addiction than expected, stages were still observed, most prominently in the pilot episode where the main character showed her childhood and how she developed many stressors to addiction. There were plenty of scenes to analyze the behaviors of withdrawal and the actual behaviors of addiction through the content and mise-en-scene analyses. The contradicted behaviors presented in the study of relapse and recovery represent the lack of linear recovery, which is unfortunately a very accurate thing in the world of addiction. Although these factors could be looked at as entertainment factors because they add complexity and depth to the series as a whole, they are also a harsh reality of addiction. In future directions for a film study on Euphoria, or film study in general, I would suggest a larger film size. This would allow researchers to take a more diverse approach and conduct a separate mise-en-scene or a separate content analysis on its own. Then they could extensively measure the specific drugs and their correlating effects rather than looking at drug usage as a whole. This more specific lens allows further validity and value to the results of research. The implications of this study will be successful in fulfilling the original purpose of informing other producers about the necessity and feasibility of accurate depictions in films. Additionally, New concerns and inquiries arise from researchers regarding their existing and future productions relating to health. Producers are able to create more successful and entertaining films while still maintaining this level of accuracy. Television viewers have a wide range of ages and experiences and backgrounds which must be taken into consideration by producers. The results of this study allow producers and filmmakers to understand the necessity in providing viewers with an accurate depiction of what they're putting on the screen. While it's necessary to focus on entertainment factors, producers cannot neglect accuracy in prioritizing entertainment. Euphoria demonstrates the ideal balance of these elements as this study's results deem the show to be an accurate portrayal of drug addiction and withdrawal. Thank you, and here is my bibliography.